All right. Well, greetings and salutations to everybody out there in YouTube land. I'm your host once again, Dan Thornton. And I just want to say this, it's not a great day to be a Lions fan. We talked about it during the live cast, and I get with live cast, we had some issues. So I apologize about that. But I'm going to say this to everybody. I mentioned it ad nauseum during the live cast. Derek, thanks for jumping in the chat. I'm sure other people will be in a bit here, but I'm going to say this. My problem is the coaching. Last year you're playing with house money. You're going out there and playing against teams when you're not under any kind of pressure to win because you're already expected to lose. This year, we all wanted to see growth. We wanted to see development from the coaching staff. We wanted to see that, hey, Dan Campbell isn't going to gamble on fourth downs all day long. He isn't going to just make one choice after the other, almost like you're desperate and have no clue what to do. You want to see that Aaron Glenn isn't going to let somebody do to you the third straight year that they've done year 1 and 2 against Detroit. Quarterback play action rollouts, tight ends coming across the middle, tight ends going out routes, wide open busted coverage. At some point, you can only blame players so much because who's the teachers? The other part is, and we talked about it again during the game, Ben Johnson. We caught everybody off guard last year with this, that, and the other thing. Offensive genius, right? Well, here's the problem. Now all those defensive coordinators that knew they were going to play you this year had an entire offseason to watch your formations, watch your sets, listen to your play calls, see tendencies. So they have a fairly good idea, especially early in the season, if they see the same setups this year, what your probability is. During the Kansas City Chiefs' first game of the season, we talked about the Sarge, Tony Libretto, and I a lot about, hey, coming out of that first quarter, St. Brown looked pretty good. He looked like the St. Brown we all know. But after that, where'd he go? And we talked about during that live stream that, man, St. Brown was taken out of the game for the most part against Kansas City, and really this game with bracket coverage, double coverage. And there was just no other options for the Lions offense to consistently beat coverage and say, hey, we will win if you keep putting 8 guys in the box to stop the run and double St. Brown. Let's face it, Josh Brown's going to have some nice stats for the second week in a row, but is he winning things the vast majority of time to switch coverages from the opposing defense coordinators? And that answer, at least in my opinion, is no. Walter, Jody, everybody out there, go ahead. They scored 31 points. Yeah, I get it. And yet the Goff haters will jump up and say, well, Goff scored 7 for him. I get it. Goff had a bad pass because the backup right tackle, Matt Nelson, raise your hand if you think he should have been the starting right tackle out there instead of maybe moving Big V out there or somebody else out there and then having Glasgow as your guard. I mean, Matt Nelson is a great 6th offensive lineman if you go with 6 offensive lineman packages for running plays. He's not going to do any justice to any quarterback in this league. What happens on the pick 6? Nelson gets beat horribly. Goff throws, faster than he should have. It's slightly behind Gibbs, and it gets taken to the house. But here I'm going to talk about, before we get into Aaron Glenn, let's talk about the choice by Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell. And I wasn't yelling and screaming about it in the live cast, but you get the ball with all 3 timeouts, 1:58 to go. You've got to go 50 yards to hit pay dirt and end the game. You win if you get a touchdown by all probability. Instead, we're going to call our first timeout with under 40 seconds to go. We're going to waste another one with 20-some seconds to go. And what are we doing? We went a total of 23 yards in 2 minutes because we kept dinking and dunking for small gains and just letting the clock burn. Instead of playing for a win, you played not to lose. And at the end of the day, when you don't play to win, you lose the vast majority of the time. And I don't care if you're talking baseball, football, basketball, whatever. Last year, we talked a ton on Lions Talk Live about not so much the players. We all understand the majority of this team are fairly young players, but so are the coaches when it comes to experience. Pete Carroll has coached at every level since 1492 When Columbus sailed the ocean blue and finally discovered America, he was already on his 4th team when he came over on that boat. So he knows how to manipulate games, small details here and there. Look at the offense. Both offensive tackles out, plus during the second quarter, their center went out, Evan Brown, former Lion. What they do? They started going with power packages, 3 tight ends out there, 1, sometimes 2 wide receivers to keep the Detroit pass rush off, to keep the running game going, and to keep the rollout game, which they favor so much, intact. They kept Geno Smith basically clean. I mean, it's just watching the inexperience of the coaching staff. And I get some of you already putting in there about Aaron Glenn and stuff. Aaron Glenn's going to have to grow up real quick as a DC, because if you see any changes from him schematically from year 1 to 3, last year I get they went with house money and stuff and just say, hey, we're going to play man across the board and send the house after the quarterback the vast majority of the time. And we'll see how that works. What team really destroyed that, though? Carolina Panthers. And what did they do? 3 tight end formations, 2 tight end formations, run heavy, play action rollouts. And guess what? Tight ends were wide open. Running, I mean, I think we all know we got ran over left and right there. And what happened today? Carbon copy of that, just like the last time we played Seattle a year ago and the year before that. And it didn't really change today. We make Geno Smith's banker and agent just salivate at the opportunity to keep showing those videos against Detroit anytime the contract's due. So, yes, what pass rush? We didn't gamble our game when we're down. DC needs to make better calls. Yeah, the DC made no calls. I mean, you want to see just, okay, so most of you guys know I scout players, try to sign pro contracts and stuff like that. One of the biggest things when I go out and scout, I tell everybody it takes me 15, 20 minutes to figure out if that person's got the athleticism and the skills to be able to play at the highest level. I have to sit around and watch for another hour, maybe an hour and a half, to see if they have the emotional components to play at the next level. A lot of, one of the best players I ever evaluated, and this is going back 30 years, was a dude named Randolph Keys. The game was over, 20 points up or down in either direction. You would have thought that dude was Michael Jordan, destroying people out there. That score got down to like 10 or 12 points or less. The guy couldn't bounce the ball off his leg and out of bounds fast enough. And yes, I'm talking basketball here. But that's the other part when scouting and players, when you're watching coaches, not just, coaches, but also the players. How do people handle the big moment? I get most of these people haven't been in that, and that's the problem. Last year, you're 0-6. There's no expectations. You're just trying to save your job. You roll the dice on some things. You gain some momentum. You caught some teams towards the end of the year that had already given up. They knew they weren't making the playoffs, and they didn't have your mojo. Great. You got them. Same as Green Bay at the end of the year. Green Bay's got a noose around their neck. They're playing tight. You're playing loose. Go for it on 4th down. Who cares? We don't get it. We're not going to the playoffs. But here today, the Lions did play with a noose around their neck, and they acted like it most of the game. Dan Campbell kept saying, man, we're on our own side of the field, 4th and 3. Let's give Seattle 3 points. You think those 3 points ended the game? Instead of that field goal to tie the game, sending it to overtime, it could have won the game for us. Instead of us going for, turning down a field goal in the second quarter, we could have won for it. And again, we could have won. A game of inches between most teams in the NFL or any pro sports. And Dan Campbell at this point hasn't shown me enough growth as a coach to be able to say, yeah, this is a guy who is going to take us somewhere. Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson need to grow up too. They need to spend a lot of time tonight, tomorrow, going into Tuesday when they get back on the field and figuring out what they're getting killed with. And raise your hand if you have confidence in Aaron Glenn right now as a defensive coordinator. Because I'm going to say this. If you do, you're seeing something different than me. And you're okay if you see it. But right now, I'm not seeing it. It has nothing to do with Aaron Glenn. He just hasn't got enough experience to figure out how to alter his schemes from time to time. Make something look like one thing and then hit somebody with something else. All you're usually trying to do in pro sports is create a half a second of hesitation from somebody. Do I see something or is it slightly off? I think it's going to be this. Instead, I get that. And because of that, I get the hesitation and I get the athlete to make an error. Same with the coaches. And right now, Seattle came out and they owned us, especially in the second half. Yes, the Montgomery fumble helped them, but you know what? you're never going to get a perfect game. I heard the announcer saying, Hutchinson got held on the final play, the touchdown pass to end the game. So what? You didn't have 50 other plays, opportunities in the game to make a play? Get over that stuff, because that's what losers do. And if I hear any of the coaches or players talk about that, that's a warning. And it should be a warning to you too. This team hasn't grown up enough to win. Maybe by the end of the year, they'll be ready, but they're not there yet. They've got to learn how to handle all this mojo. Remember last year, they were 1-1. Team, everybody was saying, hey, the media, they're the darlings of Hard Knocks. This team's got promise. They didn't handle that pressure so well. And then they became 1-3, 1-5, 1-6 before they got some things to go their way, and they got some momentum. This year, everybody's saying, hey, this brand new Lions, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. Friday, if you go back to Lions Talk Live, I do a warning video saying, man, they need to win this game. This is absolutely, in my opinion, a must-win game. Because if you don't win, all that positive momentum, all that positive commentary, Monday morning, a lot of people are going to be yelling, same old Lions. And that's the window that Dan Campbell and the staff have created here. And I say Campbell. That's how I say it. So you can go ahead and put your comments in the comment section below. Brother Ken, hey, good to see you back here. But the loss, you know what? You could be right. It could be a blessing in disguise. If they go out and address some things on offense and defense, and the coaches look in the mirror and say, what do I got to do to get better? And they improve, then yes, it'll be worth 10 times its weight. We get to the end of the year and we're something like, 10-7, 12-5, whatever it may be, and we're in the playoffs. Great. The problem I always have after week one is there were so many people out on YouTube and in the media saying, this team's bad, this team's gold. Hey, should we go to the Super Bowl? Overreactions. These people have never obviously coached or played sports. And that's the problem I have. Teams change so much from week to week. You start getting a month, 2 months in, then you see consistencies. And I'm going to say this right now. This offense is in trouble. This offense absolutely 1,000%, in my opinion, needs a primary receiver, because St. Brown is a great receiver. He's just not an alpha primary receiver. He cannot beat the coverages that are now designed to stop him. And there's no Lion out there running around to pull that coverage off him. And we're going to see it until somehow the Lions beat it. Is Jameson Williams going to be that dude? I have no clue. And I doubt any of you do. We all think he can do something, but we haven't seen it. If I'm Brad Holmes right now, if this season is really the one I think we can contend and do something, you've got to get on that phone now, not tomorrow, and start looking for a receiver who can come out there and be our alpha, our receiver number one, because then that's going to change that coverage. And now St. Brown can torch teams. Now he can have single coverage and destroy most of the defensive backs out there. They're going to be stuck in single coverage on him. Laporta, I think, is going to be pretty good, giving him some more experience. But he cannot beat the coverage yet. Gibbs, will wait and see. He's still a rookie. He's still figuring it out, just like Laporta. And you're probably having too much expectations from them out of this point, too much of the Kool-Aid. So I'm going to say this. I'm not pushing for Mike Evans or Timbuktu to be brought into Detroit. But you're not getting Mike Evans right now very cheaply, since the Bucs are now 2-0. And their window of opportunity to get that is probably now gone unless something changes before the trade deadline. Lions have a real opportunity to be great this year. They also have a real opportunity to fall on their face, I guess is what I should say, if they're not careful here. That defensive line needs some interior pressure. And I'm going to say this. Jalen Carter is the right fit right now. Yeah. Personality issues, whatever. I get if you would have drafted him, you would not have Gibbs, more than likely, and Laporta, but is what it is. This team's got an opportunity. And I'm going to say this. In sports, you can't always be thinking, hey, next year's our year, because then you're avoiding the opportunity you have this year. If you're saying 2024 is going to be the year we go, because, then we're going to have those guys, then you're wasting a year. And athletes have incredibly short shelf lives, especially in a sport like the NFL, as physical it is. 1-2 injuries to a key player or two, and teams change dramatically. So I'm not going to keep this horribly long, but let's see what you guys got to say. We made Mosley bad. Jerry isn't what he used to be. Huh? And Mosley's going to take some time to develop. Harold, what you got? Lions died in the second half, and the Seahawks came out to win the game now. We are 1-1 and have to do better and get stronger and win the next game. 100%. You can't let one loss become two losses because then it starts becoming a mentality. Then you start doubting yourself. And then you're relying on a window of opportunity to go your way where you can start getting mojo back. Tight ends. Yeah. Rick Reality, I agree. Tight ends kill us. They've killed us for years. And it doesn't appear that Aaron Glenn and this defense is going to change that anytime soon. Mobile quarterbacks kill us. So it's not as bad as all you think. They'll be ready. Let's hope so. But I'm going to say this. You're as good as your last game. And this game should not feel good to any coach or player right now. They let one get away. You can say they won one they shouldn't have won in Kansas City, but you know what? You also let one get away that you shouldn't have here today. And if you do that too many times, you're going to let a season get away. All right. Aaron Glenn, Michael Rimmer, Aaron Glenn doesn't adjust on the fly. I would agree. You do really see any different schemes after the half? Did you see anything from the first quarter, second quarter, third, or fourth? At least I didn't. So getting back to Rick Reality, where's the pass rush? It wasn't. And you can say it's because Seattle was wise enough to go with a 12 package and 13 package where they kept multiple tight ends out there to help chip block and stuff like that. Great. But then your coverage has got to hold up. Either that or you got to send more than they can block. Whatever it is, Aaron Glenn he got out-coached today, in my opinion. And not just him, Ben Johnson as well. Ben Johnson, I think, has been exposed a lot in the first two games. So he's going to have to evolve as an OC, or this offense is going to struggle because 31 looks good, but 31 wasn't enough today. Brad made a huge mistake not taking Carter. That could be a true statement. Let's wait to see at the end of the season what happens with that. But kind of proves that Travis Kelce had played last week. The Lions definitely would have lost. It's hard to say because I'll say this. He goes out there and plays the first 4 plays and pulls an Aaron Rodgers. He would have had probably the same situation as if he didn't play at all. Jerry Jacobs is a liability. Maybe, but right now, apparently there's nobody else to beat him out. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully Mosley, I'm anticipating Mosley will be back next week. Same with Taylor Deckard. But, outside of Matt Nelson on a couple of plays, I didn't think he played horribly. But I'm going to say this. The pick 6, you can say it's on Goff, or you could say Matt Nelson got beat. Goff had to throw a little bit off balance and faster than he should have. The other part of that is Goff should have known, hey, just eat it and take the sack. But trying to make a play and sometimes doesn't make a great decision. The other part of that is he's thrown 1 pick in 11 games. I'm going to guess most of us would take that out of our quarterbacks. But anyway, I'll let you guys go. I think we get that not a great day if you're a Lions fan. Aaron Glenn is inconsistent as they come. He's going to have to improve, just like Dan Campbell, just like Ben Johnson, and just like this team. They're going to have to grow up a lot in a hurry. And if anybody's overlooking Tampa Bay and Atlanta, I think we're missing an opportunity here. It'll be interesting to see what happens this week with Lions, but they're going to have to come up with some more answers because I don't see the defense being in a better situation next week or the week after that. And if this defense doesn't get better than it was last year, man. Before we go, here's a question. Where's James Houston? This guy was on fire last year, and I can barely see him on the field in either of the first 2 games. We can't get to a quarterback, and this guy specializes in what? Getting to the quarterback. I don't get it. One of the few times we actually got pressure and hit Mahomes last week, it was James Houston wrapped all around Patrick Mahomes' ankles. Help me out. Did anybody see him out there other than sometimes where they dropped him into pass coverage? I don't get it. Houston got hurt and didn't return. All right, well maybe that's why I didn't see him much. So Walter, thanks for that. So Marcus, just so you know, I was yelling and screaming about that during the live broadcast. You got a chance with 1:57 left. You get the ball 3 timeouts. Why aren't you pushing for a touchdown? Let's go. To me, that's a failure of coaching because you can't blame it on the players. They're doing what they're told. Unless somebody's going to go steaming Willie Beeman and say skip the playbook, I'm taking over, which maybe Goff should have. But yeah, you played to not win. And because of it, you lost. Go out there and win, because that's what good teams do. I impose what I want to do on you, and there ain't nothing you're going to do to stop it. Well, if we pull off a win next week and the week after that, I think we'll all forget about this and maybe even look back like Brother Ken said and said, hey, blessing in the skies. But whatever it is, we're going to all have to endure a week of media saying same old Lions. The Lions saying, hey, it's on this or that. Somebody saying, man, it's all on me, whatever. It's all, in my opinion, all that's great talk. But at the end of the day, there's only one thing that matters. Did you win or did you lose? Nobody wants to hear that, but it's the reality of pro sports. Were you effective at your job? Or are you going to say, man, we were close. We almost got them. Yeah, that's what losers do. All right. Take care. Enjoy your days. We'll see you all tomorrow on the next Lions Talk Live.